Are we live? We are live. This is great, folks. I got my Shabbos Goys t-shirt on. Everybody check it out. You could get one at the Adam King Show store. Right here. At this QR code. We're going to start this show. We got Seth Dillion coming on. This is going to be hot. I'm so excited. Got so much going on. But we should first start with a song. What do you guys think? How about this one? I'm so excited about this, guys. Boom. Okay. We got our live video going on Instagram now. We almost had Facebook up. And we are live on YouTube. Come check out our YouTube, folks. You could be in the comments on the YouTube. We are live on the Rumble. You could be in the Super Chats on the Rumble. That's good. Checking them all out. And we're live on X. Doing it, baby. All right. We got Seth coming in about 10 minutes. There's a lot going on in the world. The internet's going crazy right now with a bunch of stuff. Some weird infighting going on Team Jew with Nima Yamini. We're not going to cover that. I have been talking to Nima, and he might come on the show to talk about it, air himself out. You know, we'd like to give everybody a chance to speak and have a voice. I should make an official show playlist. This song is called VR Bice by Mikaji Remix. Good, right? I got so much great news, guys. What shows do we have? I got Sloan Rahma tomorrow. We're going to talk about JD Vance. I got Ashton Forbes next week. We're going to talk about physics and the Groypers. God, the lineup is huge. And then the week after that, I'm in Vegas with Jake Shields again. Oh my God, folks. It just doesn't end. And it's never going to end. There's like so much happening in the world. So much drama in the LBC. It's kind of hard being Adam Dio Double King. But, you know, every single week you can guarantee that I'm going to come on out, say my piece, talk about my Torah. Oh, and then Jew Boy. Yeah, you, Jew Boy. Jewboi. He's supposed to be coming on finally, this flaky ghost. I'm excited to have him. He's the man. Really funny guy, if anybody's ever seen Jew Boy. But, yeah, man, I love comedy. So, anyways, now that we're here and we're all checked in, before the show starts, I have a piece of news that I really would like to share with everybody. Now, over the weekend, there was this site, X Global Rank. Then it showed like the most important accounts on X. Now, it was taken down. Believe it or not, folks. X Global Rank was taken down over the weekend, and it says that it no longer exists. But luckily for us, I saved the leaderboard page. Now, I want to show you guys something that is, to me, extremely peculiar because as you all know, obviously, let's put my camera up here so that you guys can see my beautiful face while I give over the news. This is a very serious thing because this basically shows you who X has invested into more than anybody. Now, as I was going through this list, I realized something. Top 100 list. There are only 17 accounts that are actually faced and named accounts. Like, for instance, Libs of TikTok, we know it's Chaya Rychik because we know who it is. But, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's an anonymous account. Gunther Eagleman is a non-anonymous account because he's Gunther Eagleman, he's got his picture, etc. So Elon Musk, Fabrizio Romano, Eric Dow, Gunther Edelman. And then, as you could see, there is just endless. Nick Sorter, endless. And then Narendra Modi, endless. Benny Johnson, Tommy Robinson, James Woods. And then here's where it gets interesting. Laura Loomer is number 28. Where's Vivid? Vivid is up here too. So anonymous. Mehdi Hassan. And then there's Vivid, 38. So Laura Loomer, Vivid, anonymouses. There's your guy Adam Media, this fake Pakistani bot account, number 49. Anonymouses. Anonymous, Justin Bieber. Everybody's like, look, Hayasaka Aryan. This shit is so crazy. The Figgin. And these are all like so many anonymous accounts. Then you get down to number 81. You got Ayal Yacobi. And the list goes on and on. Scott Pressler's a public account, real account. Eduardo Nannoni, Jackson Hinkle, and all these people. They're all, and Gavin Newsom is also on here. So I did the list. I have the save page, thank God, of the leaderboard. They took it down, but it's important to understand this leaderboard. Here, I'll just preview it for everybody so you can all see how the algorithm works. These are the accounts that the algorithm wants to bot on X. And out of them, there's only 3 pro-Israel, really truly pro-Israel accounts. And Laura Loomer, I wouldn't even, she's pro-Israel, but she's really like an America First account. You know, like she's pro-Israel, but she's really like a Donald Trump account. So Ayal Yacobi and Vivid are on here. And really, it's just the 3 of them. And as you could see, the top 100 list, here it goes. And I have the page saved. Anybody wants it, they are welcome to come and get it from me. And but I wanted to show that because I think it's like super important. It's kind of freaky, actually, that you know, they had this and then they took it down. And this is really like the beginning of the botted system. What is supposed to be like this free speech absolutism turned into this like algorithmic Nazi-like equation that has kept all of us kind of like in this the woke Reich type of a thing. And like X is just like nonstop anti-Semitism. I mean, it's just like unbelievable anti-Semitism constantly. So while we're here, I'm going to show you, let's go over some news while we wait for Seth. And where's the best place to get news, guys? The best place to get news is Awesome Jew. Let's be honest. Awesome Jew is the only place to get all your Jews news. What a great flyer I made, right? Amazing co-branding. Awesome Jew and Babylon Bee over here. So we got $7,000 checks coming down in the super chats. Republicans have flipped a heavily Democratic suburb of Cleveland, electing the first female Orthodox Jewish mayor in U.S. history. I want to say congratulations to Michelle Weiss. Thank you. I will see you at the Elders of Zion meeting, and we can begin to plan how to, best take over the world that way from Cleveland, Ohio. Congratulations to you, Michelle. Moving on. This one was crazy. Absolute chaos is unfolding in Dearborn as Muslims and Christians clash outside City Hall with Christian protesters surrounded by frenzied Muslims demonstrators shouting Allah Akbar. And this is Lang is his name. And everybody's trying to blame him and say, "Oh, he's Jewish. It's a Jewish psyop." But meanwhile, like he literally burned the Talmud on his on his on his uh and on his ex. And it's like I saw Ahmed Suleiman, one of these silly goys, this guy right here, say, "Oh, if he burned the Talmud, the Jews would freak out." It's kind of funny. Anyways, let's go back. We are here going over the news. This one was crazy. Mikhail Shikivishvili, 22-year-old Georgian neo-Nazi known as Commander Butcher, has pleaded guilty in Brooklyn to soliciting hate crimes and distributing instructions to make bombs and ricin. Prosecutors say he led the maniac murder cult, promoted school shootings, recruited terrorists online, and bragged about beating up elderly Jews. He also planned to dress as Santa and hand out poison-laced candy at Jewish schools to kill Jewish children. Captured in Moldova, he now faces an 18-year sentence. Look at that mug. That's gross. All right, what do we got? In light of Palestinian terrorism and Israel, the growing number of Western countries that are alienating Israel and recognizing Palestinian terrorist state, which would be run by the same jihadis who committed the October 7th atrocities. It's time for Netanyahu to do the right thing and officially exit the Oslo Accords. This would make him a hero in Israel, and many who now see him as a sellout and a Western puppet would regain respect for him. This can be the moment for Netanyahu government to finally save Israel, formally exit the Oslo Accords, which gave away concessions to Palestinian terrorism for nothing and recognized the Jewish sovereignty over Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. Then I got shadow banned again, so we had a shadow ban test. And this is President Trump. Let's see what he has to say here.
Will there be any joint investment between the U.S. and Syria? And will you visit Damascus?
Are you from Syria?
No, but
Where are you from?
I'm from Palestine.
Oh, you're making a lot of progress, huh? Very good. Well, they like me. The Palestinians like me. The Palestinians are doing very well.
Do the
actually. I think we're working very
Palestinians like
closely with a lot of
President
people
Trump?
that make everybody happy, including Israel, the Palestinians, and everybody. That's very interesting.
Will there be any joint investment between the U.S. and Syria?
And truth is I don't think that they really do. But President Trump thinks they do, so I guess that does. And this is all coming out of the President Trump Saudi visit. But, folks, as we have originally intended, the news segment I'm going to call to an end because our guest is here. We have the one and only, the legendary father of the Babylon Bee, leader of the bee cult, the King Bee himself, none other than Seth Dillion. Welcome to the Adam King Show, Seth. Yeah.
What's up? How are you?
Now, we've never met before, quote, but we did have coffee at the Elders of Zion last week up in the Hamptons to talk about who's getting these checks. So it's nice meeting you for the first time, actually. But
Nice to meet you too.
I say that jokingly, because I don't know how in the world that it happened that Candace Owens lumped me into the graces of you and Josh Hammer and Bill Ackman at that Hampton Summit. But in writing, she put that I was one of the main focalizers. I didn't even know that. So first, before we get this show started, I want to thank you, Candace, for introducing me to my new friends. It's been really great. So, Seth,
you have to wonder what her source was for that. And I imagine, as per usual, there was no retraction, right? No correction to that false statement.
Well, the craziest thing that happened, Seth, was that because of my associations with InfoWars, being a band video host and all, that everyone called me because they love Candace. And so they all called me and they're like, "What did you do? How are you involved?" And I was like, I didn't even hear about this thing until Candace told. So everybody knew. Milo Yiannopoulos, Elijah Schaefer even called me on the phone and said, hey, like, can you, like, please throw Candace a lifeboat because she's sinking. Like, this could be good for you if you throw her a lifeboat. Maybe we could cause peace with this lifeboat. And like everyone was calling me, everyone knew, and everyone went back to Candace and said, hey, you got this one wrong. Adam King was not even there. He didn't even know about it. I went on air
Yeah.
the whole week and I talked
By the
about
way,
it.
not that it would have been a problem that you were there, because it wasn't how it was characterized. It was, nobody was staging an intervention with Charlie. Charlie was inviting people there
Well,
to have
I hope I'm
conversations
invited to
on a
the next one at
wide-ranging.
least.
What's that?
I hope I'm invited to the next one at least after all this.
Yeah. Well,
Well, what I was going to say was I went on air. I had like 3 or 4 shows that week, and on every show I covered it. And like people like Milo Yiannopoulos and everybody were telling Candace, hey, this isn't true. And then a week later, she went on her show again and said the exact same information, that I was there with you guys, that I was, threats were made, and so it's like everybody gave her the information, and then she went ahead and lied again when she knew that it wasn't true.
A common experience. I have that experience a lot myself. Doesn't really matter what you say or how you say. I addressed a lot of the claims about myself and what my involvement was there, and whether or not Charlie was blackmailed, and there were these heated conversations behind the scenes. All of that was false. People came out, disputed it. I disputed it myself, and yet the narrative continues. It's whatever's sensational, but also will cast maximum suspicion on people that she doesn't like. That's what she runs with.
What was absolutely crazy was I made a huge fuss about this because she's like #1 on YouTube. And at the time, I wasn't allowed on YouTube. I had this guest, Tyson Hockley. I tried to stream to YouTube and break the censors. They wouldn't let me on. That was the last time I tried. It was like in August or so. I think it was September, actually, that I had him on. And then afterwards, I went on, I complained to YouTube. I said, hey, what is this? She's like accusing me of like being a part of the plot to kill Charlie Kirk, and I can't even get on YouTube, and she's #1. What is so threatening about me? Anyway, so they let me back on, and I had this guest, and it was my first show on YouTube was so successful. I had 582 comments, and the guest wasn't that big of a guest. The next day, I had Dinesh D'Souza on the show, and I had 18 viewers on YouTube. So it was like they let me back on the platform, and thank God we're streaming to YouTube. And but right afterwards, they shadow banned me, and the only reason I got back on is because really Candace, was blabbermouthing me. What do you think about like her being astroturfed and platformed to the top of YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iTunes? What's your take on all that? Like, where's it coming from?
Well, for one thing, let's start with the fact that, for all of the claims that Jews run everything, Jews run the media, Jews run the world, and that if you dare defy them, they'll take you out, they'll stamp you out, they'll silence you, they'll suppress you. Where's the silencing and suppression happening? Like,
Right.
where is she not able to get reach? Like that's her success ultimately contradicts and undermines the claim that she's, this target for suppression and silencing from the people that she claims are controlling everything. If they control everything, she wouldn't be so successful.
And
but why
everybody around her,
successful, I guess, is the other question. And I mean, look, it's entertainment. People like to be entertained. They are more susceptible to radical conspiracism than they ever used to be because of all the conspiracies that turned out to be true. There's been many of those.
Yeah.
And so, with all the lying that the so-called experts have done, and all the lying that the media has been engaged in, and all the efforts to censor and suppress conservative voices, and the fact checking that was done in the name of safeguarding the truth, but it was actually done in the name of safeguarding the narrative. People naturally have a lot of distrust, and so they're looking for alternative sources of information that they can trust. And so that creates this new, breeding ground for people to come in and say, hey, look, everything you've ever been told is a lie. And I'm going to steer you towards the truth. I'm going to cut through all that nonsense and show you the truth. Of course, that's not what's actually happening, but I understand the receptivity to it from people who have been lied to a lot. They're looking for some kind of an alternative. The problem is that it is one more of the lies, is the lie that everything you've ever been told is a lie. it's certainly the case that we've been lied to a lot, but that doesn't mean that we have to throw out all of history. It doesn't mean that we have to throw out all knowledge. It doesn't mean that we have to distrust everyone and everything, even people that we have, better reasons for trusting them than not, and we're still going to cast suspicion on them. You don't. That's not the way of actually seeking the truth. That's the way of seeking views and clicks and engagement.
Right. And, that's a very benign way of looking at it. I think that there's a much more nefarious play as Trump moves into the 26 midterm elections, that there's this idea that there's no enemies on the right. And so in that kind of vague existence, this true enemy, I mean, Nick Fuentes came out just last night and said that the right and the fringe right and the fringe left have to unite, and the right has to give up capitalism and the left has to give up immigration. And
I saw that.
And that's their play for 26, because their whole
so uniting
agenda,
with the woke right is uniting with the woke left.
Yeah, and their whole agenda is to lame duck President Trump. If they could get if they could get one Democrat seat majority in the House or the Senate, they lame duck the president, and then the 28 elections begin. And that's what they want. They want a lame duck, and they want to move to J.D. Vance and have Tucker Carlson control foreign affairs for America. What's your take on J.D. Vance in this whole situation, as he's kind of been relatively silent, even defending his own wife?
That's hard to figure out. I don't really know. I think that Tucker did JD a big disservice when he had Nick Fuentes sitting across from him and wasn't challenging him on the things that he'd said about JD's own family. You would think that JD would have a problem with that. He hasn't vocalized a problem with that. I think he's still committed to wanting to hold together as broad a coalition as possible. I think Turning Point is kind of in that same space where they're trying to think about what battles are worth fighting. Where should we be focusing our attention? I've seen some people over there talking about the need to just, let's focus on the left. Let's focus on the left. Let's focus on the left. I get that. I understand the desire to have a broad coalition and to be united in our effort to defeat the left. What I don't understand is the kind of willful blindness that's involved in that. I did write a piece. I don't know if you saw, but I wrote something for the Free Press called "The Foolishness of No Enemies to the Right." Did you see that?
I didn't see that. No.
Yeah. And the premise there of that essay was to just address this. First of all, the moral bankruptcy of uniting with evil in order to win, I think, what does that even mean? How are you winning if you're abandoning your principles and you're siding with bad people and their bad ideas and allowing them to go unchecked and bringing them into the mainstream so that you can win? I don't understand what it even means to win in that context, because you're giving up everything that matters to you that you've supposedly been fighting for this whole time. And so you're becoming more like the left in order to defeat the left. That doesn't seem like winning. It just seems like trading out one bad guy for another, and you're becoming one of them.
Right.
But it also doesn't make any sense from a political standpoint, because you're not going to have a winning strategy when you're uniting with these people. You're uniting with white nationalists who, they hate minorities, they hate Jews, they scapegoat, they're engaged in revisionism, they're engaged in radical conspiracism, they have these authoritarian impulses. You start uniting with people like that and bringing them into the fold and mainstreaming them purposefully, and that's a recipe for disaster at the ballot box. I mean, you're just literally giving the left everything they've ever wanted. The left caricatured the right as being, as Trump as being a Nazi and or Hitler. Trump was Hitler and his followers are Nazis, right? That was the caricature. And if you were to lean into that caricature and actually manifest it in reality and make it a real thing, then it's no longer a caricature where you can say, no, we're not actually like that. The answer becomes, yes, we are actually like that. And then they destroy you. Right. So I don't know why you would give the left the greatest gift they've ever been given by becoming the thing that they had caricatured you as, that was going to, in their view, make it easy to defeat you. Why would you adopt that yourself? You can't justify it morally. You can't justify it politically. So why would you do it? I think the whole premise of No Enemies to the Right is designed not to create unity so that we can beat the left, but to give bad actors and radicals on the fringes of the right an unchecked path to power. That's what it's designed to do. It gives them zero confrontation or criticism. They're allowed to criticize you, they're allowed to criticize me. They can punch to the left of themselves all they want, but they're off limits, so you can't
If we
criticize them.
ask a question about Buckley Carlson being employed by JD Vance, that's, according to JD Vance, unacceptable.
Asking the question?
Just asking the question. That lady Sloan Rochmuth is coming on the show tomorrow to talk about, her interaction with JD Vance, and all she did was pose the question about Buckley Carlson working for JD Vance, and JD Vance, Vice President of the United States, makes shares her tweet and says how unacceptable it is to ask a question about Buckley Carlson. Meanwhile, their entire campaign against Jews is, we're just asking questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would hesitate to. I wouldn't have asked the question simply because I don't know. Well, first of all, I don't know anything about Buckley Carlson. I don't know what his views are. I don't like.
I know Buckley Carlson, the senior, his brother is an actual Groyper, the guy who he's named after, which is
he seems to be very
Uncle Buck.
What's the word? Supportive of that worldview. I see him, retweeting Nick Fuentes and stuff like that. But Junior, the staffer, I don't know anything about him, so I don't know what the question is really aimed at. If it's just, if it's aimed at getting some kind of clarity or something. But to make a statement on something, if he hasn't done anything or said anything, I don't know why anybody would have any issue with him, or why they would raise the issue. Whether Vance's response was appropriate. I mean, it was a hard dunk. I'll say that it was a hard dunk. And there is a tendency. I think a lot of people are very forcefully resisting any challenges or questions along these lines, largely out of loyalty. That's usually the primary thing that's given, is this explanation of, I have loyalty to these people. These people are my friends, or I work with them, or whatever. I'm not going to criticize them. And again, taking Buckley out of the picture because I don't know anything about him. But just generally speaking, this is an argument that's used against speaking up, and I don't understand that argument either, because really ultimately our loyalty should be to what's good and what's true. That's really what our loyalty should be to. Our loyalty should be to the Constitution, to the rights that it protects, the American spirit and the American dream and the liberty that we all enjoy. That should be what our loyalty is to. And if there are people even that we consider to be friends of ours who are undermining that or attacking that, then they should be confronted, and we should be willing to confront them. I've long said, and I've actually lived this out in my own life, that we should be willing to lose friendships for the sake of what's good and true. You should be willing to, and it's not a matter of just cutting them out of your life and saying, I'm not your friend anymore because I disagree with you. It's the willingness to confront them and challenge the ideas that they're promoting, or turning a blind eye to. We should be willing to do that, and our friends should be receptive to allowing us to give them that kind of feedback without suggesting that we owe them silence or that we have to shut our mouths. If someone is requiring on big issues of moral importance, if they are requiring your silence and you're not allowed to push back on what they're actively and very vocally promoting themselves, then they're not really your friend. They're just holding you hostage.
Speaking of friends, the internet was in uproars about your deleting of the tweet with Megyn Kelly. The Mehdi Hassan tweet, it's obviously Babylon Bee, folks. It's, always satire. But what was the call to delete it? Like, why did you delete the tweet? What was was it about? Did it have anything to do with Josh Hammer saying the neutralize word, even though neutralize doesn't necessarily mean to kill somebody? But where were you going with that? Like,
they did the same thing with Josh. So this is a leftist tactic, isn't it? If you use metaphorical language, if you say if you say we need to fight, we need to win, then the left is like, oh, he said fight. They're talking about civil war. They want to take up arms and kill us all. It's a death threat. It's like, no, I'm talking about this is metaphorical language. And by the way, every time you speak, you use metaphors like that too. And you guys talk about fighting. So what are you talking about? Trying to twist this maliciously into something that it's not. Clearly that was happening with this joke. The joke was not that we're going to kill Megyn Kelly if she continues to be anti-Israel or something like that. That's such an absurd and woke left attempt to respond to humor by taking it so seriously and out of context,
From the
so that you have
Babylon
something,
Bee too, out of everything,
yeah, to have something to dunk on people with. Like, like we had no beef with Megyn Kelly where we were trying to like, threaten or coerce her. And it's such an uncharitable take, but it's not just uncharitable, it's dishonest. I mean, the people that were promoting that misrepresentation of that joke were not being honest. They're bad actors. They hate us. And they were looking for an excuse the same way the left does when they twist words and take them out of context and treat, metaphors as if they're, not metaphors. It's the same kind of thing. But ultimately, I wouldn't, what I had said about this is that I wouldn't have published the joke anyway, because it wasn't clear enough to many people what really the punchline of the joke was, for one thing. And I don't put Megyn Kelly in the camp of like anti-Semites pretending to just merely be anti-Israel or anything like that. Like, I don't want to mischaracterize anybody. So ultimately, just as like a correction to the mistake of publishing in the first place is why I ultimately took it down. Not because an outraged mob. I think the mob, when the mob forms and they're lying about what your motivations are and they're lying about what you did, you should never cave to them just because they're misrepresenting you and trying to drag you on the internet. That's not the right reason to do anything. If you're going to do something, do it for the right reason, not because a mob is trying to drag you by misrepresenting what you actually intended. And just to speak really clearly about what the joke actually was, the joke actually was about paranoia that people have. There's this irrational fear that if you so much as criticize Israel, if you merely give a little small critique of the Israeli government, then there's going to be assassins banging down your door and trying to kill you. Like somebody's
Right.
going to censor you, somebody's going to cancel you, your life is going to be in danger. And so the joke was kind of tapping into this irrational paranoia that people have. And because Megyn has aligned herself with and defended people who have gone very strongly in the anti-Israel direction, anti-Zionist, like very aggressively in that direction. The joke is that, she's just throwing away her old pager just to be safe so that, Israel doesn't come after her and treat her as if she's an anti-Semite. It wasn't
That's funny, dude.
likening
That's
her
actually
to a
really
terrorist.
funny. That's a funny joke,
Yeah. Yeah. The problem is if you ask 5 different people what the joke was, you get 5 different answers. And so, I just didn't think it should have been run in the first place. I think there's other ways of making the point and other targets that could have been used.
I mean,
So,
let's be honest. It's not the Babylon Bee's top 10 list, but it's a funny joke.
no.
It definitely carries humor, and it's very
And
beta
generally
of her.
speaking,
It's also
just
very beta of her to like not just be like, "Oh, that's Seth Dillon, the Babylon Bee, being funny." Like she really got
yeah,
out there and was like, "Oh my God," and she was the one like kind of promoting this pandemonium. I see a
yes, and
starking similarity.
she's historically mocked people who do that, who take jokes too seriously. She
Yeah,
tells
and then
people to
she
calm
does
down,
it.
it's just a joke.
And I
She
see
even
her
did that.
I see her surprisingly synonymous with Brett Cooper. These are two people whose media careers were almost over, and not knowing where to go, they are just like almost like free agents desperate to be picked up by a team. And, I'm disappointed in Megyn that she had such a problem with your I don't know her personally like you do, but I was very disappointed in her because, just last week, Tucker came out and said, you Jews are doing all these things, and if you keep doing it, you're going to have real consequences, not Nick Fuentes consequences. And I'm like, that's actually kind of like a real threat, like
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
responsible for our own pogrom type of a thing. Like
right.
that's like a little bit,
This
out
is going to
there.
come back to bite you in a
And she
big way, and
doesn't
it's going
have
to be
any
your
problem
fault.
with that type of talking. She just has a problem
Right.
with the satire newspaper, the Babylon Bee, making a funny joke that not everybody gets.
Well, simply because, the bee is on the other side of this issue in terms of, where we stand on this thing. We've defended Israel's right to exist and defend itself. We haven't, jumped into the hysteria of calling Christian Zionists the worst people on the planet who, we hate more than anyone else, as Tucker said. Um, so when people land on different sides of this stuff, they try to vilify and be as uncharitable to the other side as they possibly can be. I, out of an abundance of caution, wanted to avoid being uncharitable to her. She didn't reciprocate that and offer the same charity to us. And it is a problem when people take jokes too seriously. There's always someone or something is always the butt of the joke. We typically, will mock people who take jokes too seriously, and oftentimes we have. There's
You should
nobody
go
who's
hard
off.
on Megan because of that. She deserves it.
Yeah,
She doesn't need kid gloves. She's a grown adult. She doesn't need kid gloves.
Yeah, but again, it's not about her needing kid gloves and me thinking, oh, Megan's so sensitive she can't handle a joke. That's not really what it's about. I think that people do often deserve to be mocked. The point is, the joke has to be worth it, and it has to be rooted in the truth, and it has to be something that somebody really deserves. I questioned whether or not that was the case in this case. Maybe I'm wrong. People disagree with me and think that we should have left it up. What's done is done. We're moving forward with it. Ultimately, though, at the end of the day, the joke was not a thinly veiled death threat. We weren't comparing her to a terrorist, and the people who are saying that are just liars who want to try to smear us and try
that
to
was
drag us.
not. We did not discuss that at the Hampton Summit. Megan, you weren't in that discussion, not at all. And we would have done it with our space lasers. So chill out on the pagers. Zap you in your. It's actually the microwave in the kitchen. We'd get you there. No, not all jokes aside. All jokes aside, nobody's gonna get got, and it's very disgraceful how these people have galvanized around Charlie's death to recreate Charlie's image. And one thing that I'm very just blown away with, I didn't go to AmFest last year. Everybody was begging me to go, and I was busy, and I didn't go. Now everybody's begging me to go this year, and I have absolutely zero desire to go to that, knowing it's already going to become an anti-Israel rally. The fact that Tucker Carlson can stand up at Charlie's funeral and he can't even bite his tongue against Jews there, and he's the headline speaker of AmFest. Megyn Kelly's the second headline speaker. It's like they really wanted Candace Owens, but they can't do it for optics. But they ban on Tim Pool. Tim Pool's not allowed to come. He was asked not to come. Are you going to AmFest? Like, what's your take on the whole thing? I know Ben Shapiro gave $1 million to Turning Point. That was unbelievable. Kudos to Ben. And Ben, we don't even agree on everything, but I think the guy is super based going to college campuses. I mean, he's a real target. I pray for his safety, but he gave him $1 million and they give him the cold shoulder. I mean, like, what's going on with AmFest? Are you going? What's your take on this year? Is it going to be like a giant slander the Jews type of a thing, or walk the line between Zionist and Jew language?
So I've been to AmFest before in the past. I've spoken at Turning Point events, and I've spoken at AmFest in the past. I wasn't invited this year. I don't try to guess it why. They can invite whoever they want to. I don't know what the reasons are for who they pick and when they decide to pick them. I don't have any reason to believe that they have any reason not to invite me to things. Maybe they just had a full lineup. I don't know. Tim is talking about how he must have been disinvited or disallowed because he's too critical of Israel, which doesn't make any sense to me at all.
I didn't buy that either. It's like, what are you talking about? Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, he's like, well, Tucker may just be too big to cancel.
I know.
It's like,
maybe he became a Bernie bro again or something.
Yeah, that reasoning doesn't make any sense to me. I will say this, Charlie's position, and he articulated this to me personally, is that he wants Tucker at his events. He likes Tucker. He doesn't agree with everything that Tucker says, but he wants to give Tucker a platform to say it. And so he has the right to make that decision, and Turning Point has every right to honor that decision and continue to host Tucker if they want to. It was certainly Charlie's intention while he was still alive to have Tucker at his events and to headline him and to tell him that, you're free to say what you want to say and no one's going to put any restrictions on you, and do your thing. So, that was Charlie's position. So as far as I'm concerned, Turning Point is really honoring Charlie in that sense of at least, carrying on what Charlie himself was advocating for internally at the organization. Obviously, some things have changed and ramped up since Charlie was killed that Charlie is unaware of and that he's not here to speak to today. And I'm not one of those people who tries to put myself in Charlie's shoes and say what he would or wouldn't say or do today. I don't
You're
I don't
not
think it's
Seth
right for us
Owens?
to try to do that.
Seth Owens isn't going to do that? I've been loving Steven Crowder's commentary. I mean,
I can't stand when people try to do that and they try to say,
it's
this
so
is
disgraceful to the deceased.
Yeah, you can draw some reasonable conclusions about what would or wouldn't be said, but honestly, we live in a different world now than we did just a couple of months ago. And
Why do you
you
think
can't
Erica has been so quiet on it?
I don't know.
Like
I don't know.
she could nip it in the bud just by saying, "Hey, Candace, like."
I think it's so. You asked about
like
JD
she's
Vance
being
earlier, right?
accused of killing her own husband by Candace Owens, and she's just like not talking about it. Have you know Erica Kirk? I imagine you've met her before.
I've met her before. It was years ago, and I don't know her personally on a level like I did with Charlie. We literally met one time, very briefly. I don't know why they're choosing not to address it. I think, like I said before, the Turning Point is in kind of a similar situation to what JD is trying to navigate. Is how do we hold together a broad coalition and keep people focused on what we think matters. And I disagree with the fact that these are things that we don't need to deal with. I think they should be dealt with. I think they should be confronted. And I think that a lot of positive forward progress could be made if people were more willing to speak out and confront it. And there are some people over there at Turning Point. I think Alex Clark has become very vocal. She's not in, like a leadership position over there representing the organization, but she's been very vocal. My friend Allie Stuckey has spoken out and started to become more vocal about this stuff. I think as more people do find their courage and their voice and start to speak up and address this and realize that this is not just going away, in fact it's getting worse and it needs to be dealt with, there's going to become that tipping point where more and more people decide that it's not just like worth it but necessary to do that. I don't know what that tipping point will be for Turning Point at this point, because I don't know how you could go much further than has been gone in vilifying them and casting a spotlight of suspicion on everyone there at the organization. I think what's happening there is just incredibly disheartening and despicable from a moral standpoint. To put the people that Charlie loved and respected and trusted the most in a position where they're the most
his own
suspicious.
Wife. I mean, like,
yeah. And this denial that Megan fact checked Ben on this and said that Candace hasn't implicated Erica. Well, of course she has. She's implicated literally everybody. She's implicated everyone who was close to Charlie as being involved in betraying him, and has raised tons of questions. A lot of it is by insinuation and implication, and just here's the dots. You guys go connect them.
Right.
And so it's not like these explicit statements. Did she ever actually say Erica Kirk killed her husband? No, of course not. But what she has done is she's cast suspicion on everybody.
She did say specifically Turning Point wasn't at the very highest levels was involved in the assassination, and she did say that.
Yeah, and if that's true, then
and if Erica is the CEO of Turning Point,
she's
now,
the CEO, then she's involved in the cover-up,
and she has to make a public comment on it. I just don't understand why she's not making a public comment, being such a controversial and consequential figure. That is what baffles me more than anything about the entire Charlie Kirk assassination is Erica Kirk's silence on the.
There's a calculation being made potentially about not wanting to put more oxygen into this fire to make it, burn longer. And
without them, they are putting the oxygen in. It's getting worse, and it's pivoting.
I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying one of the possible explanations, while we're reasoning through the possibilities, is that there's a calculation, potentially a very big miscalculation being made about whether or not this needs to be addressed or should be addressed. There tends to be, among many people on the right, an idea, like we were just talking about a few moments ago, that what's required right now is focusing on the real enemy, which is on the left. And I just, for the reasons I gave, I think it's short-sighted and a mistake. I think that you're handing the left a victory if you refuse to deal with the cancer that's growing on the right, the cancer of these bad ideas that need to be confronted. Yeah. They need to be dealt with. The bad ideas and bad actors have to be addressed. And so if
Yeah.
you're not willing to do that, then you're not healthy. And if you're not healthy, you can't fight and defeat the left. You only help the left. And so that's a debate that needs to be had. And it's a debate that we're currently having. And a lot of people don't like it. They really don't like that we're having this debate. They're trying to act like we are being divisive and sowing discord. You know, it was the Heritage Foundation president, Kevin Roberts, who was saying that we're a venomous coalition, you know, sowing all this discord. And he's since walked that back and apologized. But the knee-jerk reaction of many people on the right is to object not to the toxic ideology and the bad actors who are trying to take over the movement, but anyone who notices and says anything about it. They're the ones who get
Yeah, we're the
attacked.
noticers now, bitches.
Yeah, and I don't understand that at all. I don't understand it from a political or a moral perspective. I object to it very strenuously myself, and I'm trying to motivate others to speak out about how foolish it is, because I think it's ultimately it's suicidal from the movement's perspective. And so, I hope maybe we'll end up winning this battle in the long run. There was a lot of, like I mentioned, Heritage. There was a ton of pushback to that, and rightfully so. For the focusing on the wrong thing, treating the people who identified a problem as being the problem. There was a ton of pushback, and that's a good thing. It's a healthy thing that there was a ton of pushback, and hopefully we continue to see more and more of it.
So Alex Jones had me on a few weeks ago to talk about Tucker, and you made this comment just now that JD Vance is trying to not lose the coalition of the big tent, and this is like the way that we are interpreting things. Or they're not giving us guidance on why they're doing the actions that they're doing. They're just letting us try to figure it out, and we think that they're just on our side all the time, good people. And so it's kind of like that trust me bro thing. Like, and but when Alex asked me, he's like, do you think Tucker's MAGA? And I said, no, actually Tucker was MAGA, but then he left MAGA. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, MAGA is a massive tent, and Donald Trump proved that by hugging the gay flag at the RNC. He created this massive tent where every walk of life was welcome in the Republican Party, something that the neocons didn't give us. But Tucker wants the Republican Party to be smaller. It's very obvious that he wants it to be smaller. He wants it to be Jew-free. He wants Miriam Adelson's money out. He wants all the Jews who contribute to the party to be out. And that, frankly, is a much smaller coalition than what President Trump did. It's the antithesis. So, J.D. Vance as the vice president has a much stronger office than Tucker Carlson, but he doesn't seem to be able to correctly put Tucker Carlson in his place, but he wants to put other people like Sloan Rothmuth in her place, but not Tucker Carlson, even though that's what's damaging the Trump movement. What I'm afraid of most is the 2026 elections, that they're going to try to lame duck President Trump, and that's their grand strategy to de-Judifying America. So what's your take on that? Obviously you said, that JD Vance is trying to maintain the coalition, but if JD was listening right now, what would you say to him about, Tucker being maintaining the coalition or trying to create a smaller tent for the Republican Party?
Tucker's certainly not trying to maintain the coalition. MAGA, the declaration that's happening amongst the groypers and the radical right is, MAGA is dead. And a lot of that is wish casting on their part. They want MAGA to be dead.
Right.
They don't like that the MAGA
That's why they
agenda,
all supported Kamala.
Yeah, well, they don't like that the MAGA agenda is, and this is where it ultimately comes down. They like to act like everything that we think and do, it has to do with Israel, right? Like it's all, we're Israel first, Israel first, Israel first. They are actually the ones who every major, political decision and opinion that pops into their head is focused around Israel and what our response is to Israel. They view MAGA as being a problem because MAGA is, Trump himself is extremely supportive of Israel and has been for a long time, and always has been. This is not a new thing. It didn't just pop up out of nowhere. This is who Trump is. It's what the MAGA movement is. It's America first in the sense that we prioritize our own interests, but it's not America only in the sense that we isolate ourselves from the rest of the world and stand down on our allies and just leave them to their own and don't support them. And so that was the MAGA movement that they were a part of until they decided they wanted to burn it down because of their strong animosity towards Jews and Israel. And so that's on them. That's not Trump's problem. That's their problem. They're the ones trying to tear it apart, yes, and narrow it down to just people who hate Israel. Tucker's comments about Christian Zionists being the worst people that he knows eliminates millions upon millions of, faithful, good, reasonable Christians.
Yeah, they're like worse than jihadis who want to kill Americans. It's crazy shit.
If you want to filter out those people from your movement and just narrow it down to these bigoted white nationalists who hate anybody with dark skin or anybody who's got Jewish ethnicity
unless they're Muslims, because Muslims are totally welcome by Tucker Carlson.
Yeah. Well, because Sharia law,
especially if they have money.
Sharia law is pretty conservative, isn't it? We'd be a much more conservative and
I don't know why we don't agree with. Why are we not aligned with Nicolas Maduro, Seth? Like, come on, that's just so obvious. We should be best friends with Nicolas Maduro.
Yeah, he's very socially conservative, isn't he?
Yeah, he's against the gays. I mean, like,
if you put a strainer in place and filter out all the people who reject this hatred, this vitriol, this bigotry, this supremacy, this authoritarian fascist nonsense. If you put a strainer in place that filters all of them out, what you're left with is a movement that has no political power, no moral or principles, no morals, no principles, no ability to accomplish anything that you want to accomplish. It's just destructive. And so I don't understand, unless that's the goal, is to be destructive and hand power over to the left for the foreseeable future. If that's the goal, then they're doing a pretty good job. And there's a lot of cowards who are refusing to stand in their way. And I'd like to better understand why they're not speaking out and being willing to confront it when it's so clear what's actually happening. But the broad MAGA coalition, it is a broad MAGA coalition. But even if you go back and quote Trump from the Charlottesville incident, where we had the viral comments from him saying there's fine people on both sides, and remember how the left took that and ran with it to say that Trump was praising white supremacists and neo-Nazis and saying that they were good people, and they literally just cut the clip too short because Trump continued his comments and he's like, and I'm not talking about the white nationalists and the neo-Nazis. They should be condemned totally. Yes, they should be. Let's go with what Trump said. Let's have this broad coalition that cuts out the white nationalists, the neo-Nazis. They should be condemned totally. That's still we have a very, very large tent if we cut out those people.
Yeah. We
certainly shouldn't be trying to mainstream that movement and make more of those people because, again, it's politically suicidal and morally bankrupt. So it's a complicated and messy situation the right has found itself in. But there is a right side and a wrong side of this conflict. Yeah. And the right side is the one that Trump took in that stand where he said, look, there's good people on both sides, but not the white nationalists and Nazis. They should be condemned. And so should, by the way, the BLM terrorists and Antifa or whatever, those two equal but opposite sides that are engaged in hatred and violence and have no respect for the Constitution, no respect for liberty. They don't belong in either movement. And they certainly shouldn't be given the reins. The left gave their radicals the reins and they went too far, and now we're winning. And this is one of the things that I know I'm going for a while. I'll let you respond in a second, but this is one of the things that I don't understand about this strategy is that, the left went too far by giving the radicals the reins, and we're winning as a result of that. We're winning in the courts, we're winning in the culture. And this whole concept of we need a new movement, MAGA's dead, whatever, we're literally winning now. Charlie was winning
so hard.
Charlie Kirk was winning. The reason that some lunatic person decided they needed to kill Charlie Kirk is because he was so effective. And so if we're effectively fighting in the public square for our ideas and we're advancing them and we're winning, the last thing that we should do is either stand down, silence ourselves, cower in fear, or change our tactics dramatically and become just like the left. Why would we do that?
Right. And it also falls on President Trump. I've been an ardent Trump supporter since the escalator in 2015 when he came down the escalator at Trump Tower. I ran for Congress in 2014, and when he ran afterwards, I was so sick of the Republican Party. I said, "That's my guy." I've been here from the beginning. So, but really, it's Trump's legacy that's at risk. It's not JD Vance's future. It is, first of all, JD Vance will never become president if he allies and forms this strong coalition with Tucker. And maybe, the Jewish word for it is kiruv, like trying to ingather and bring people back from the fold. Maybe JD Vance is trying to kiruv Tucker Carlson for a second. But at some point, he's got to cut his ties. President Trump rightfully condemned Nick Fuentes and the Kanye West debacle when they came for the dinner. But this is ultimately Trump's legacy, and we look to him for guidance, and there's no guidance from the White House or the vice president's office. In fact, just yesterday, Trump came out and said he likes Tucker Carlson. There's no problem there. So, I don't understand that, because we're 11 months into the first part of the second term. These 11 months have been broadly more successful than the entire first 4 years of Trump. And these people, instead of building on the momentum, are trying to divide up the corpse of Trump, and Trump is just sitting there idly. Vance is just sitting there idly. And unfortunately for these people, they still have half of the other country that is not Republican that they're going to have to persuade many millions of in order to win an election. And frankly, Democrats will just not vote for anti-Semitism, or, they won't vote for racism. It's so ingrained into them to hate the bigots and the racists that I just don't see how this is anything but an intentionally losing strategy to try to lame duck President Trump. And if President Trump pulls through 2026 with a massive victory, I think presidential term limits are going to be suspended, and we might get Trump version 3, which would be the ideal situation. I don't see it as remotely equal balance of power if Congress and Senate have no term limits. The judicial system has life appointments, but the presidency is only 2 terms, 8 years. Americans deserve stability. We deserve a communal consensus that can last 30 to 40 years on one person, so that we can build and focus and not have to be constantly engaged in this eternal who's right, who's wrong, nonstop. It's killing people. It's shortening their lives. It's stressing out the country. So we could fix that with Trump if Trump just acts now against these bad actors. And unfortunately, I think AmFest is planned to be the launch point of the Defeat Trump, Lame Duck 2026 Trump campaign. So, I just don't see it. And frankly, it saddens me. I didn't know Charlie that well. I met him before. Once Erica was there before they got married. I only knew Charlie a long time ago when he was just getting started and before he became the mega icon. But he was the guy who held the coalition together, and the left saw it. What I don't understand is how you killed Charlie Kirk, and I killed Charlie Kirk, and Bill Ackman killed, and Israel killed, and everyone killed Charlie Kirk except for Tyler Robinson. But somehow, we're not going to talk about it. JD Vance isn't going to talk about it. He's going to shoot down anybody that questions the narrative.
Well, let's just say something really quickly about Charlie Kirk and the broad coalition, because Charlie also did draw lines. And lines need to be drawn.
With Nick Fuentes, he called him a vermin. He had
he said that this Jew hatred is brain rot. It's bad for the soul. It's bad for the country. He condemned it strongly in no uncertain terms. Anytime it came up and he was asked about it, he condemned it. He wouldn't even talk to Fuentes because he considered him, just a hateful troll. And so that he was willing to draw lines. The last thing that Charlie would have wanted to see, if we could guess, if we're going to try to guess it, what Charlie would say if he were here today, I don't think Charlie would have changed his tune on Nick Fuentes. I can't speak for him today, but he was pretty clear when he was living that he was steadfastly opposed to what Nick stands for.
And do you think that...
I think the movement needs to continue to stand that ground. And so it was really a deep betrayal of Charlie that Tucker had Fuentes on his show. And rather than not just simply that he had him on his show. I mean, having him on his show is one thing. Tucker has every right to do that. I think that Charlie would have defended his right to do that, but he had him on his show. And rather than challenging him on the terrible, despicable things that he said, like when we come into power, we're going to execute these perfidious Jews and these Muslims and these secular atheists and whatever, all of the horrible things that he said, the glorification of Hitler. Somebody put together a clip recently, it was like 8 minutes long, showing Nick Fuentes glorifying Hitler. The fact that Tucker, instead of challenging Nick on those things, gave Nick an opportunity, an open opportunity to moderate himself and present himself as more reasonable than he actually is, and wouldn't even challenge him when he was right there in front of him talking about how he's a huge fan and admirer of Stalin.
I thought you were a Fed. I thought you were a Fed.
Yeah. I'm sorry I called you
retarded.
gay, and I'm not going to challenge you when you praise
And the
Stalin.
craziest thing, I don't know if you saw this, the New York Post came out with this story that they had dinner the night before. Did you hear that?
Yeah, well, Tucker does that with all of his guests. He would have been making an exception if he didn't do that. I've been on Tucker's show, and he had me out for dinner the night before. He does let's get to know each other personally a little bit before we sit down on camera and talk. So it's a common thing that he does, and I've done that with him myself. But the point is that instead of he aided Nick in mainstreaming himself, and Charlie never wanted to see that happen while he was alive, going off of his own words. I don't have to stuff words into his mouth.
Especially with Dinesh. I mean, him and Dinesh were friends, and Dinesh was here 2 weeks ago talking about how vehemently angry Charlie was at him for debating with Nick.
Talked to him. Yeah,
not talked, debated.
Yeah.
And Alex Jones was the moderator, and
Dinesh
buried him in the sand.
He probably would have objected to Tucker even talking to Nick. But if he did talk to him, he should have been confrontational with him. And so that's where we're losing. That's where we're going off track. And that's where, when you talk about, how Charlie was kind of holding this together, there was a very real sense in which Charlie was at least, a backstop against that madness coming into the mainstream. He had lines that he was willing to draw, and it's disparaged all the time. It's a dirty word. It's like dispensationalism. This word, you're not allowed to say gatekeeping. You can't gatekeep. Gatekeeping is so evil. It's just the no enemies to the right thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not. Gatekeeping is how you keep your movement healthy. You have to keep out the rot. You have to keep the cancer out. You have to be willing to look for it wherever it festers. And so if we're just, I gave this illustration recently in a speech that I was giving at an event about anti-Semitism. And I said, I recently went in for a body scan at this imaging place that does like CT scans. It was like a diagnostic scan just to see if there's anything in my body that I need to address. And I was glad that they didn't only scan the left side of my body. They might have missed something on the right side of my body. And that's my whole point, is that you can't go after the people who are demanding a scan of the whole body. Let's not just look at the left and the left's bad ideas. Let's see if we have some of our own that are going to kill us from within, and then we won't be able to defeat the left. Mm-hmm. And the unwillingness of so many to do that is absolutely baffling. And most of it, almost all of it, comes down to this divide on Israel. People who are staunchly either anti-Semitic or extremely critical of the United States' relationship with Israel. They are very powerful. They're very influential. They have the wind in their sails right now because this is a popular position to take. And there are people who are just so afraid of challenging them and applying any pressure to them at all or confronting them that this is going way further than it needs to or should.
And the anti-immigration crowd, while they constantly LARP on Jews in Israel, hasn't even said anything about 42 radical jihadis being elected to senior positions across the country, several mayoralships, and all these 42 positions can hire directly into the bureaucracy, the biggest being Zoran Mamdani. I didn't see anybody. Everybody likes to talk about the Ted Cruz Tucker situation. Tucker Carlson was so aggressive to Ted Cruz. If they campaigned for one fraction of the time if they had Citronelli on, the guy from New Jersey, or if they had any of the candidates on, they could have defeated this. These are huge platforms. They could have defeated the left, but instead, they don't even want to address the left anymore. They don't care about immigration. They don't care about anything except for defeating MAGA. And their hat is blue too, which is like, the America First, the America Only hat. Looks like a Democrat hat.
Right, but why do they want to defeat MAGA? Because MAGA is pro-Israel, and so it all comes back to Israel. That's ultimately what it is.
But I think it's even
So
more
it's not America First. If it was America First, there would be a lot of focus on the things that you just mentioned.
right.
And the focus, though, is almost, if you look at Tucker's episodes last year, it's like almost every episode is centering on Israel. It's not They're not America First. They are Israel bad. Israel bad. That's all they can think about.
Israel everything, yeah.
Israel everything. Israel bad. Israel bad. That's not America First. And so it's taking the focus off of the issues that actually matter. And it's so funny and ironic when, someone like Tucker goes after Ben Shapiro and says, you're so focused on these issues over there when there's all these issues we have here at home. Tucker's the one who can't stop talking about Israel. And most of the conversation, people like me don't really think about or talk about Israel that much unless, all these people out here are driving the conversation and we're responding to them. Mm-hmm. I'm not the one who's hosting a show every day bashing Israel and mm-hmm. Jews. It's like, this is a conversation that's being driven by them. And so they're not America First, they're Israel bad.
And now pivoting a little bit from them and focusing on our own side. One thing that I have noticed as being an up and coming voice in this movement, it took my own personal money. This is my hobby, so I just do this for fun. I own a tech company, and so I do this podcast for fun. It's all zero profit, but it took a lot of serious work to get where I am today. And one thing that I noticed on our side is, and I love Ben Shapiro, Dennis Prager, Mark Levine. These are all like iconic voices that really spearheaded the movement, but conservatism in America. But one thing that I've seen that I don't fully understand that I would like to see changed is that a lot of these people have platformed very little Jewish voices, if any. Dennis mm-hmm. Prager and I share many mutual friends. One of them is very intimately involved with everything that he was doing. And she was always saying, you got to have Adam King. You got to meet with Adam King. And he said, no, only 25 years old and not younger. And I'm like, why would you discount an entire generation, Dennis Prager? And Ben Shapiro for the Daily Wire. I mean, yeah, he has Josh Hammer. And Josh Hammer's brilliant. I love Josh Hammer, but he is kind of like a Ben Shapiro 2.0. Like, someone like me, there's not so many Jewish voices deep in the fringe right. Like I go on Jake Shields. I go on Elijah Schaffer. I go on Alex Jones. I go on all these really consequential. And by the way, I would love to bring you with me to some of these places. I think these type of mashups, are really what change hearts and minds. I actually have an anti-Semites trip to Israel coming up, which is a bunch of anti-Semites that I've kind of gotten to the fence who are, some of them are have become like total Zionists.
Is that what you're calling it? Anti-Semites go to Israel?
It's going to be called the Anti-Semites Trip to Israel. You're welcome to come with us. It's going to be hilarious. It's going to be A-list, 60 million view content. It's going to be incredible. Some very famous anti-Semites are going to be seen at the Western Wall saying, I had no clue that this is what I was talking about. So, and that, God willing, will be in the spring if everything goes according to plan. But make a plan and God laughs. So, but and I appreciate you coming on and really letting me make that flyer because it's so Babylon Bee-esque. And, I'm always trying to co-brand and get my name out there. And what do you have to say about people on our side, platforming more people on our side? I kind of find that people on our side, they make it in. Ben Shapiro has such a power to elevate so many voices. He doesn't have to agree with every point. But he really could, the Daily Wire should have had 5 different major Jewish voices, but they didn't have any except for Josh Hammer.
Well,
because the other side certainly doesn't have a problem platforming each other.
No, they don't. Our side seems to have a big problem with. I hadn't given much thought to the question that you just asked. What I had thought mostly about was the resistance that there is to platforming people like Nick Fuentes, having those conversations. And it's always been my view. You'll never have heard me say that he should be censored, that he shouldn't have any voice at all, that he shouldn't be allowed in the public square unless he's breaking the law and threatening somebody's life. Like saying something that's literally unlawful. Then he should be allowed to speak. And you only, in most cases, and we experienced this ourselves, when we were being censored and suppressed, it actually amplified our voice and allowed us to grow. It drew more attention to us. It was that ironic, Streisand effect, where you try to stamp something out and you draw more attention to it. I've never been opposed to platforming people like that. What I am opposed to is promoting them. And so I think that there should be willingness on our side to have conversations with people, even even people that have really terrible views and values that we reject. That's an opportunity to drag the bad ideas into the light and expose them for what they are and challenge them aggressively. And I'm seeing more promotion than I am seeing, platforming with intent to challenge and condemn, which is how we should be responsibly using these platforms with voices like that. And so, it's not about censorship. It's the number one thing that we hear all the time is that we're pro censorship, that we don't want to no one's allowed to criticize Israel. Literally, the people who say that every day only criticize Israel and Jews.
Right.
It's what they do exclusively. It's how they make their living. Of course, they're allowed to do it. Is it right that they do it? No. Are they allowed to do it? Yes. And if we talk to them, then we have a moral obligation to push back on them. I don't think that we should be promoting and mainstreaming them. And so that's my only objection to things like the Tucker Fuentes interview is how the interview went. It should have been the most confrontational interview he ever did, and it wasn't even close to that. So
Right.
That's the problem with that. As far as platforming more Jewish voices, yeah, I mean there need to be more speaking out. I'd like to hear from more of them, and I would like to see more of them platformed. I think that would be a healthy thing.
I'll tell you, from someone who started out in the muck, in the mud, and vast censorship, and have grown to, I don't know, I think this year I'm at like 175 million views or something like that, which is unbelievable. Thank you, audience. You guys have been incredible. Everybody who tunes in every single week, we put all of our effort in, and you do too, showing up for the show. Thank you. But when I first started, I was getting 200 views an episode, 200 views an episode, and that was it. But I kept going. And there's a lot of really smart, brilliant voices. Daniel Greenfield is one of them. There's a bunch of Jewish voices on the right who are just absolute geniuses. And, they get censored. I showed right before you came on the show, there was this thing for a minute going on X called X Global Rank. I don't know if you saw it, but it was basically you put in your handle and it assessed every tweet thing that you did and kind of listed all the global rankings of the top 100 accounts on X. And out of those accounts, only 17 accounts are not anonymous, including Elon Musk and his buddies. There's 3 pro-Israel accounts, Laura Loomer, Ayalia Kobe, and who was the other one? Vivid, who's anonymous. And the rest of it is 80 plus anonymous accounts that are like anti-Israel. And so Jewish accounts get censored on X. I'm not allowed on the metaverse. I get unbelievably crushed on the metaverse. So I do think that like if there is going to be and I would never, I'm not looking for a job with the Daily Wire or anything like that. I do really well on my own. I don't, thank God for my tech company because I have a lot of fun with that. Nobody knows about that. I keep it really secret, except for right now. But yeah, I try to platform as many people as I can. I'm not a Seth Dillion. I'm not a mega voice like Ben Shapiro. I think we could do our own service by having our own AmFest style thing ahead of the 2026 elections, just by providing a counter narrative and not letting Turning Point be like this end all be all definitive, youth movement of conservatism anymore. So I want to speak out against that. I'm not trying to speak out. I'm trying to inspire people to build our coalition, because it's not going to build itself. It comes from us laying the groundwork, making connections like you and I, like when you had that death threat in Florida, I was extremely grateful for all your help. dealing with my own death threats. And those death threats literally come from Candace Owens' broadcast. She doesn't say, go kill this person, but she said, threats were made. It was Adam King. It was Awesome Jew. And the 67 IQ crowd goes nuts over that and thinks it's commands in order to go kill people, and thank God I have such an amazing relationship with the police because of other incidences that I've had and my police department, God bless them, they handle it so professionally, but X didn't handle it professionally. But with your help, I was able to get a lot done. We really need like our senior people to promote and kind of expand the tent. So I'm glad I got to bring that up to you. What do you think we could do to fix what we have now? I mean, I have my own ideas and whatnot. I shared some of them with you, but with Tucker and the shrinking of the coalition and the sublime attacks on President Trump, trying to lame duck him in 2026. What can we do, all of us together, to stop this now and get back to that 12 years of glory that we had in November of 2024?
Well, I'll give you the short answer because I got to hop here in a second anyway. But the short answer is that, we need to continue to speak out, speak the truth boldly, confront the bad ideas wherever we find them. We will embolden other people to speak up. Ultimately, I grew up in the Christian church. I know evangelical Christian culture very well. These strident and disgusting strains of anti-Semitism that have crept into the Christian movement. I'll put that in scare quotes because many of these people are just filled with hatred and don't reflect Christ's heart at all. Is an anomaly. It is not what mainstream Christianity is. There's a lot of support in mainstream Christianity throughout the country, and emboldening people. I'd like to see more coming from pastors and Christian churches in standing up to this. But ultimately, what it requires is just like with the fight against the left, where people had to finally stand up. You needed to have female athletes who are willing to not jump in the pool with the male athletes.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have those people who are willing to stand up and say, I'm not going to go along with this madness anymore. And that courage is contagious. It spreads to others. It emboldens them. And then you start building momentum and pushing back on this stuff. And so we just have to keep doing that undeterred. And when I say undeterred, that's a big thing, because the attacks that have come on me, the death threats that have come my way, there are people, powerful, prominent people who used to be friends of mine who now hate me. And so, it's not fun. You get smeared relentlessly. You're misrepresented. Even jokes that you tell are perceived as death threats, which is absurd. But, you just have to keep pushing and doing the right thing just because it's the right thing.
I have Ashton Forbes coming on the show next week, and we were talking about this privately, and we were talking about neo-Nazism and everything, and I told him these people are irrational and facts don't matter to them. Everything is feeling based. And so if you want to speak to them, you have to make them laugh, because laughter opens up the heart. They will stop being a Nazi if they're entertained and if they feel good about it. So I always have this saying, if you can make somebody laugh, their heart is open, you can convince them of anything. And so I think we win by comedy.
There's a great quote along those lines from Harold Klerman. He said, make them laugh, and while their mouths are open, pour truth in.
Amen. While I have you for God, I had so many things I wanted to talk to you about, but all this social gossip was so pressing. I wanted to talk to you about your Christian faith. I wanted to talk to you about just Bible stuff in general. I'm like a total Bible nerd over here, Hebrew scholar. I just wrote a book. My book, I'd love to send you a copy. Od Shiloh, the Blueprint for the Final Awakening. It's all about the Messiah. It was #1 on the new release bestsellers list on Amazon.
I can tell you all about the Messiah.
I would love to. If you want to stay, we could. But what I wanted to do, actually, I don't know if you know this about me, but I've kind of become the red heifer guy. The red heifer is like the most viral trending subject. And I actually have the ashes of the red heifer in this bag right here. We did the red heifer ceremony in July, and I invited Dinesh to join. He has that really wonderful pastor that he's close with, Jonathan Kahn. And I want to invite yourself to become involved, because when we're talking about the Messiah, there is such a vital component of that, which is this red heifer ceremony, Numbers 19. So I wanted to ask you your take on the red heifer while I have you. It's kind of like a little bit esoterica, but I also wanted to invite you to participate with the Jewish and Christian coalition that we have leading this charge.
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy to have a conversation about that. I think we should do a whole. I mean, we can do another episode on that. Why don't we schedule something and we can
totally.
do get into all of it and do a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm 10 minutes past my next appointment, so I'm gonna have to
Okay.
hop right now.
I will leave
Let's
you on this by telling you that bees are my favorite animal. So keep doing what you're doing. I love the Babylon bee. I've always loved the Babylon bee. It is probably one of the best American cultural iconic things that we have in this country. So thank you for our contribution to this great country. And Seth Dillion, you're an iconic figure, and I'm very grateful to have you on the show today. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine.
God bless, brother.
God bless you.
So, guys, you heard it. There he is, Seth Dillion himself, the legend. And we got extra time out of him. I had an hour. I got an hour and 10 minutes. That's pretty good. We're averaging. James Lindsay was going to give me an hour, but he gave me almost 3 hours. But we're going to keep moving this ball forward, this Overton window. And we're going to keep bringing people like this on the show over and over and over again. Let's take some of these comments really quick. User EO something says, "Damn it, Adam, can you please tell me who the evil family is in the book of Jeremiah? The ones who worship the sun, moon, and the stars, destroyed after the return to Israel. Thanks." I don't know. Let's look it up. Jeremiah. Let's go. Jeremiah was a bullfrog. Was a good friend of mine. We're going to read all the comments today, folks. Not all of them, because there's a lot of comments, but everybody who makes a comment gets a $7,000 check. So let's read this. 8:1-3. At that time, the word of Hashem, they will remove the bones of the kings of Judah, the bones of its leaders, the bones of its priests, the bones of its prophets, and the bones of Jerusalem's inhabitants from their graves, and spread them out under the sun and the moon and all the heavenly legion, which they loved and which they worshipped and which they followed and which they sought out, and to which they prostrated themselves. They will not be gathered together nor buried. They will be like dung upon the face of the earth. Yet death will be preferable to life for the surviving remnant of this evil family. In all the places of the survivors where I have driven them, the word of Hashem, master of legions. I think that what they're talking about here is, it's very clear, because one of the things that, like, for example, the Crusaders, one of the things that the Crusaders were really big on was finding the graves of the prophets, and they do like magical rituals with bones. They all have, like, in their churches, not all the churches are like this, but there's a lot of churches that have ossuaries, like, for instance, the convent of Mar Saba in Israel, where they literally will take the bone of their priest or the ankle or a finger or something, and they'll revere it as holy. So throughout the prophets prophesied that the bones of the kings will be dug up, and that the actual bodies will be used in magical witchcraft by these evil invaders that come and they worship the stars and they worship the moon and all the heavenly legions, and they bowed to them. You know, when God sent us Jews into exile, he sent these lowly nations to defeat us, to highlight our sins, to show us that we will be defeated from the lowest. Like, he's not gonna raise the best to defeat us. We will be, if he is not with us, anyone can touch us. And if he's with us, no one can touch us. And that's why it's important to make tshuva, come to Hashem, put tefillin on, have Shabbos, love your fellow Jew no matter what. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. But that's what they're talking about. Good question. Let's see. Move it. You get a $7,000 check. User said, sounds like Kabbalah to me. Actually, it's not Kabbalah. It's Rashi. So you get you get a $7,000 check and a $2,000 check for your follow-up question. Kosher Carnivore 18 says, love the Shabbos Goys shirt. Let's show this shirt right here. We got all of our favorite Shabbos Goys. You could get this shirt right here at the Awesome Juice store. Let me show you guys the store really quick, because I don't really sell that much stuff on the show, but it cost me actually quite a decent amount of money to run the store. I do it for fun because of I do it for fun because of, I can make troll items and stuff like that. But here, let me show you guys the store really quick. This is the store, the Adam King Show store. I have a line of CBD pills that are kind of like a cancer supplement that really help a lot of people. But here's the Shabbos Goy shirt right here. And it's just so funny, dude. It is like a super funny shirt. You got everybody there. You got Nick and Amaru Fold and Jihadi Hinkle and Ahmed Suleiman and Lupus, the doctor who has lupus, and Stu Peters and Lucas Rage and Kanye West and Dan Bilzerian and what you talking about, Willis Candace Owens. And it's very funny. We got some other really great products too. I got this I don't even know this guy's name, but I heard he likes pizza, and this is a really, really funny shirt. But also we got some Awesome Jew backpacks. We got an Awesome Jew flag. This robe is sick for the women. I think this robe, they discontinued the black on me. Shoot. But I mean, this kimono is hot, folks. Look at this. If your girl came out of the shower wearing this thing, you'd be like, hello. I mean, this is just prime apparel right here. Prime apparel. That's my favorite. I haven't sold one of them yet, but that is my favorite. Let's see what else we got on the store. Big shout out to Kosher Carnivore 18 for this big shout out. We got a bikini. We got the Awesome Jew bikini out here. I should discount it. We got shirts. We got cell phones, hats. We got the Adam King Show clock, which is really cool. I love that one. What else do we got? Let's keep going. This is the Adam King Show merch. We got, this is really cool. And Stomp Out Jew Hate doormat, which is really cool. For everybody who needs Christmas shopping this year, this is the best Christmas gift you can give your friends. NGL. This is it right here, folks. The Jesus Celebrated Hanukkah Christmas stocking. And I have a lot of fun with that. Two $7,000 checks for Kosher Carnivore for the question. Let's see. Texas says, I use the same icon as X as I do here. That is fantastic. Very exciting. Let's go to some of the other platforms, get those questions in too. See, the Rumble is just stupid, man. The Rumble is just like everybody who hates Jews. Zio shills talking to brick walls. It's just dumb. Okay, let's go to X. Let's see what we got at X. We got comments. Will he be paging you to remind the date? No, I already paged him. Good one. Lots of Gelt, Jewish space lasers in the Hamptons. Cannot miss this show. And then it's a picture of Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is funny, actually. I got to show this. Is the Jewish space laser in the room with you now? Anyways, so we have a good time. It's all fun. This is seriously the best midlife crisis anyone can ask for. The Adam King Show, found at Awesome Jew. And we have, Sloan Rothmuth tomorrow. She's going to be great. I'm going to talk to her all about JD Vance. Friday, I was going to try to have Nima Yamini on, but this is a little bit too much, the crash out. So maybe the week after that, or maybe in a couple weeks, we'll have him on to talk about what happened, find out, what's going on. And then next week, we got 2 great shows. I got Karis Ray coming on. She's going to be talking about all the drama that went down with Vish Bura over at One America News, getting fired from the Matt Gaetz show. I got a lot of inside skinny on that coming down. She already gave me the whole story. That's going to be really fun. And then Tuesday, that's Monday, Tuesday, we have Ashton Forbes. And I'll tell you, I'm so looking forward to that conversation because it is going to be like not minimal. It's going to be as minimal as we can, clowning and making fun of all the anti-Semites. But we scheduled about 2 hours for that show. He gave me 2 hours knowing that we're going to go hard into physics and quantum theory. I'm going to cover a lot of the observer effect. I'm going to cover a lot of quantum entanglement, which a lot of my book is about. And that guy is like one of the smartest guys in the country. And I'm just so excited for that show because that's just a personal show for me. You guys don't have to tune. You guys have to tune in. Of course you will. But nobody, I would seriously like sit there and have a conversation alone with Ashton and be over the moon because he is just very unique, very talented. We got a whole bunch of more questions pouring in. Do Jews reincarnate? Yes, we do. Can you please send me 14,000 in checks? You're retarded. No, actually, you got paid, dude. You got paid. You're not getting any more money. Go ask the Christians. The Qataris have some money for you. The Qataris are also doing $7,000 checks, I heard. All right, let's play a song to cash us out. Let's find a good one. What did I find lately? Let's do... I don't know. Let's try this one. Interesting. All right, guys. Did it again. Another wonderful, wonderful show. Reach out to me in the DMs. Let me know who you want to see on the show. It's been pretty great lately. People just really love being here and coming in full mass. So nobody's too big of an ask. I'm still pushing, trying to get in with Tucker. I want to do the Tucker Carlson show. And now that I know he takes everybody out to dinner, I wonder where we're going to get kosher food if I get out there. But Tucker, have me on or have anybody on to provide a counter narrative. And, God, I care about this country. I have to get to my lab. I have to go to my real job, and I have a lot of work to do. So I'm going to bounce. I'm going to let you guys tune out. We're going to put up a banner. Boom. While we crash out. And I'm going to say thank you to all the guests who tune in every single week and listen to us as we deliver. All the information that you need is here, folks. You don't have to go anywhere else on The Adam King Show. Brought to you by me, Adam King. Awesome Jew. And I will see you next week, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. What am I talking about? See you tomorrow. God bless. I love you. Peace. Good night.